Andrew, you were invited to the MCO6 workshop. How did you find the content? Was it useful?
Yeah, 100%. So, thanks for the invite, first of all. And good to see you again. It's been a while since the workshop, and I really enjoyed it. So, what I enjoyed most about the workshop, Darren, was the practical exercises. So, I guess prior to the workshop, I came in with the conceptual knowledge of, the stage structures under CDT. Been using CDT and the identity compass for a long while now in my practice. What was really interesting was being able to share with other coaches in the workshop and also share around specific exercises that can bring out the essence of the cognitive intentions. And so I found that really useful. And I found it amazing to be able to bounce, different ideas as to how these cognitive intentions show up in reality with yourself and other members of the IAD. It was great. Thank you for the invite.
Now, you incorporate other systems into your own activities and your own business. From a CDT perspective, I know that we can replicate other systems out there. Would you ever consider using the principles of CDT to map across to things like the Enneagram or anything like that? Or would you rather keep the systems separate?
Well, I don't think they are separate in a sense. They're different lenses on the same reality. And so, different systems have different explanatory power. And, I haven't yet got deep enough into my, work combining all of the different methodologies to, I guess, unpick the interconnection between each of the systems. But one of the things that we did really early on together was that I used the Big Five quite a lot, because that had a fair bit of it has a fair bit of science behind it in terms of body of work around leadership. And what you were able to do with me was certainly unpick the more fine-grained structure of the cognitive intentions that make up the 5 traits that is commonly used. And I found that to be really, really helpful. And so I've moved away from using the Big Five these days. I use cognitive intentions just nakedly, because they're far more detailed and granular way of giving specifics in the coaching itself. And so that's an example of where I've, shifted coaching methodology. On the Enneagram, I haven't done enough research there yet. I'm sure there's a very strong correlation between the cognitive intentions, and, I've got little bits and pieces of that from my practice knowledge, but that'll evolve.
I love the fact that you're using cognitive intentions. And on that note, I'm giving a talk to the NLP conference in 2024, where I'm going to argue for, because in NLP, they're called meta programs, but now we know so much more about them due to the research on CDT. I'm going to argue for renaming and reframing them as cognitive intentions going forward. And I really love the fact that you recognize how useful they are. Yeah. That is great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like most, I'll just add another couple of things in here if it's appropriate. Please. NLP, I cut my teeth on, NLP like most coaches do. I use that less and less these days, and I just go straight to the cognitive intentions. And the other thing that I want to share here too is that, with DISC, again, I started out with DISC like a lot of coaches do, the extended version of DISC. But, that's behavioral. And so there's only a certain amount of coaching that you can do at the behavioral level. And you're not really affecting systemic change at the behavioral level. So now, for example, I can immediately clock pretty much which quadrant of the DISC someone is when they're sat in front of me. And with that, I can infer a pattern of cognitive intentions. But I'm looking way beyond what I would have used to have looked at. In terms of just that surface level behavior abstraction, and getting right to the detail of the cognitive intentions, which is really cool. And of course, with a bit of practice, you can marry up the language and the cognitive intentions, and they become easier and easier to spot. And then you start spotting clusters of cognitive intentions that really drive the bus. And I really love that about the system.
So one of the things that we claim in constructive development theory is that a coach at this level cannot coach a client at this level. And unfortunately for you, you're at this level. So you really need somebody who can coach you, right? But you meet with clients who are decent thinkers. And even though that they might not be the highest level thinkers, in context, they need to be amazing at their job and thinking, because they're leading organizations, they're CEOs, they're high-level people, right? So, and the fact that you use CDT and cognitive intentions in that framework is testimony to the approach of the Institute for Adult Development in what other organizations do not do. They do not differentiate between someone's capacity and capability to coach. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally fair. You know, one of the things that just, for me personally, so, talking about coaching of me, one of the things that I noticed when I first had the cognitive intentions profiling done on myself was that I was way too trusting. And so, actually fixing that cognitive intention, moved me up about half a stage with one intention.
Oh, that's perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. And so, what that means for me in terms of coaching is often I would buy the client's frame and just assume it to be true. And so the conversation would never necessarily get below that layer of depth. And now there's a little bit more skepticism and balance in my approach to my coaching, and also in daily life, of course, for me as a human being, let alone, I guess the way it's expressed in a job. So, that was really good to see, because, I had always felt that I was skeptical. And in actual fact, what was going on for me was more a healthy exploration of polarity, but retaining a whole bunch of trust that was perhaps over trusting. And I didn't have the ability to differentiate between the two, the polar and the trusting. So, that was one thing for me that I think speaks to your question.
People construct the problem at their level of construction. So when we grow their thinking, the problem might disappear because their thinking has changed, it's grown, it's developed.
Yeah, well, the problem's never outside the human being. I mean, the problem's with the human being that's constructing the problem in the first place. And so I don't do any coaching to external phenomena at the moment at all. Even when a CEO comes to me with a business problem, sure, that's relevant contextual information, but it's really about their method of approaching, the object of interest. And so, we talk about how they construct their thinking and how they navigate towards the problem, even how they frame the problem. The problem's never the problem. When the client understands their construction of self, other things happen as well. It's not just the thinking, the emotional world is impacted by the construction of self too.
So have you noticed in your clients that when you expose their construction and raise their self-awareness, and of course it's going to be the intention, awareness, choice and response, once you expose those things, does it impact just their work life, or does it also expand to other aspects of their life?
No, it's everything all at once. And so that's one of the things that we share with clients early on in the journey. It's like, that's why we work on the construction of yourself.
Yeah.
And when you see through that as a construction, it empowers you with greater choice. And with greater choice comes freedom and a relaxation into meeting things in the moment where they previously couldn't. Yeah. And so lots of things fall away there. It doesn't matter whether it's in, personal relationships. It doesn't matter whether it's in health, approach to wealth, approach to a business. It's the common thing is the construction of the self.
Okay, then. So following on from that, just one I think that the viewers would really like to understand is, well, what difference has this approach made to your coaching?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's the speed of results. So, previously sort of, you build, I took the approach, NLP and, what most coaches have access to, but it takes a while. It takes a few sessions to really get to know your client's map. And you might be making some changes session by session, and that's all good. But, when you've got the tools in front of you to really understand the complete complexity of a client's construction, then you can go straight to the nuts and bolts right out of the gate. And so in session one, typically what I share is the 3 driver patterns. So, the driver intentions that are running the bus. And for most clients, I'd say probably 80-90%, they're completely blown away, shell shocked. And so it's very rare that they don't resonate with what's shown as their primary intentions. And so then when we look across the different domains of their life and the context, they can immediately construct different approaches to the way they're approaching those contexts and get instant results. So that's the thing that I love the most about it. I actually had a client today, and this particular client was very internal and very care for self, and is looking to establish an intimate relationship. And so one of the interesting things that went through my mind was, what's her relationship with her body, and how is she holding the sensations and emotions in her body? And I was wondering and curious as to whether she'd shut herself down with so much internalism. And I was wondering if that was linked to past relationships. And sure enough, pretty much straight out of the gate in the first 15 minutes, we'd established that she'd actually shut herself down. So, what was thought at the time for her to be, independent, strong, young woman and pretty functional in certain senses in the business context, had actually shut her down to the openness to a relationship.
So can you see yourself coming along to my MCO7 and MCO8 workshops maybe next year?
If you'll have me. No, I love the workshops because it's an opportunity to really co-create together. Yes. And so, when you've got a group of people that think at approximately the same level, that's really powerful because it's actually quite rare, especially at MCO 7 and 8. There's very few people at those levels, let alone coaches. And so it's great to be part of a community that think at the same level of complexity and co-create your approaches together. So yeah, 100%, I'm in. You just got to remember to send me the invite. And one of the exercises I remember from the MCO 6 workshop, which was really cool, was actually you invited the group to draw their ideal office plan. Yeah, I'd never heard of that exercise before. And, so I drew the office plan and we had a discussion. And I thought that was a pretty cool exercise. And then I started working that into some of my client work in the facilitated workshops. And the ability with a simple, abstraction of, a person's ideal
team player
office. Yeah, you can, not only team player and individual, but you can infer so many different patterns in their cognitive intentions just from a simple picture.
I think that was a fantastic conversation based on how you do what we do and how it works. And I really appreciate your time and your continued support. So thank you very much for that, Andrew.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you've given birth to into the world with CDT, and it's really helped me, and I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people. So, thanks for having me, Darren.
Brilliant. Thank you.